focusing on going digital or supporting automation in the different recruiting, whether it is training, going for e-learnings, supporting no cars, or maybe, promoting cycling or incentivizing the employees in terms of going paperless, making sure that we go more paperless, or maybe we go for more support in terms of energy saving, whether it is plant organization or a service industry, supporting more of video conferencing instead of utilizing the energies. I'm talking about the electrical energy that gets consumed. So these are the spheres in which HR definitely kind of comes up. HR admin of the organizations definitely has a scope in terms of curtailing the different kind of losses, identifying the different wastages. We often go ahead and do Mura Muta concepts in our plant, typically identifying the wastage. How do we go for a Gemba or maybe a Kaizen? So this is from a perspective of improving the throughput time or going lean. However, is it only for plant functions? The answer is no, because gone are those days when employee categorize that I'm a plant employee, I'm a blue collar, I'm a white collar. So the policies has to be very, very sacrosanct, wherein we are encompassing a culture. It's not a mandate, or we are not there to police, but the policies, HR frames, typically making sure that we support the environment friendly equations. For example, 5th June, we celebrate World Environment Day. So what are the things that an employee can contribute? That's where the HR's a major, role comes into picture. Going for energy saving mode. Yeah, so these are the different kind of things. Maybe in the due course of time, as and when the discussion goes forward, I would be able to, will be more than happy to contribute further.
Thank you very much, Pallavi. That was interesting to hear your thoughts. So, I have a question for you. When you're speaking about HR as a function, and even earlier during the day when we were speaking today, you were talking about how you wish to change the mindset of people when it comes to them thinking that HR probably operates within a particular boundary. Because you said one of your you're very passionate about bringing people to accept that HR is capable of doing much more than what is defined on paper. So, my question to you is when it comes to sustainability and environment goals, and then associating it with the people function, the HR function, you might meet with resistance in terms of acceptability. So, as heading a HR function, we would like to understand your thoughts on what challenges do you see, and do you have a plan of action on how you can bring this widespread level of acceptance?
Thank you for asking this question, because it's very close to my heart. The fact is that typically HR function, we are the people who demarcates ourselves that this is not my role. And the moment we start telling the business that, hey, I don't mind taking it over, though it is not my role, I think that's where the cultural change is going to come. It's very important that we start accepting the situations. 2 years back, none of us in manufacturing ever thought that we can go ahead for work from home without any disturbances in terms of the efficiencies, in terms of productivity index, and so on and so forth, having a union on board. No, we never thought about it, that and to be honest, automotive going good. So from that perspective, we never thought that ever it is possible, and today we are here where 1.5 2 years have passed and we are virtual, which didn't stop us from onboarding virtually or interviewing virtually, selection of a leadership position virtually, entire PMS success factors. Many companies may have, many do not still, but then that's okay. None of the organizations has not given merit. They have gone ahead and done the virtual merit. So it's all about the inceptions that we have in our mind that we cannot do it. So answering your question, the challenge is that first, let me, I would very strongly, I practice servant leadership, personally. So if I am the first person to, leave my cabin, leave my room, switching off the light or the AC, I'm sure maybe in one go it will not happen, two goes it won't. But it is about seeing and leading by front. It is about creating a culture. There would be a day when even if I'm not in my room, somebody from the team is going to go and see that if, ma'am is not okay, I'm not there, and somebody's going to come up and switch it off because I do not like the it being. So it's all about practicing oneself. It's all about giving the right USPs. So instead of telling the business that I want to do that, think it from a business perspective, present it as a case study that if we do that, this is how the benefits are going to be sustainable benefits. And the moment we show I would say an integration of business to any interventions, whether it is HR or any other, talking about any green intervention, so to say, which we perhaps are doing, but it is now we are not giving it a name or a nomenclature as a green intervention. The moment we give it and present it to the business that this is what we do and this is what you get, this is definitely going to be a sellable concept. Challenges, biggest challenge is acceptability, because people, the plant typically have got different age groups, so the average ages are different, they are very diversified in nature. So the acceptability of people in terms of why should we do so, answering, we need to be very prepared, and we need to do our homeworks timely, that what is if these questions are asked. So instead of waiting, there's a proactive approach that goes into play before we roll out any policy. Of course, benchmarking, sustainability of any interventions help us curtail those challenges to almost zero. So these are kind of, I would say that, yeah, my thoughts about it. If anything in particular you have, please let me know.
I think that answers that, because I was very interested in understanding the kind of challenges that you might encounter. And I think that's of value. People would still have their thoughts. We'll open it up to more questions towards the end of the session. So thank you very much, Pallavi. It was wonderful listening to you. So that was story of inspiration. And now we will move to the second story, which I would title it as the story of adventure. What happens when you bring poetry, music, and literature together? Anyone? Audience, can I see your response in the chat box? What happens when you bring poetry, music, and literature together? Dr. Sunita, what do you think?
I think excellence happens at that time.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, that's lovely. So now I'm going to tell you a story of adventure of this person who called themselves as an introvert all through their life. But it's really surprising because you wouldn't relate this person to an introvert when I talk about the profile of the person. So the person calls themselves an introvert, born in a joint family, comes from a heavy literature background, both the parents from a literature background, was quite involved in the youth movement in Bengal, where the person, I'm going to say the person, okay, so got exposed to people, culture, emotions, and mindset. And no wonder the person is the chief human resource officer at GRP Limited, because I wanted to understand how did a person like this get into the HR function. One of his interests would be poetry, and also translating, very interestingly, translating music lyrics into Hindi or English. That's really interesting because it calls in for a lot of creativity, especially music. When it touches you and you really want to translate it, that means having a soulful connection. So Mr. Sanjeeb Lahiri, it's a pleasure to have you here. One of his passion is about mentorship, mentoring students, giving them that enormous amount of energy, giving them a lot of direction, and bringing a sort of an absoluteness to the entire life. So Mr. Sanjeeb Lahiri, we're really interested in listening to you, your thoughts on Green HRM.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much, Sindhu. Well, indeed a privilege, and must thank Gauri for getting me here, and Pallavi for making whatever I was thinking of saying, having already said that. See, the whenever I hear green, and now I'm a part of, okay, so major part of my corporate upbringing has been with the Tata Group, various organizations in that side. I started my professional journey with the public sector, which got taken over by the Tata Group, and thereafter, uh, it's another story or a story for another day. But now I'm extremely privileged to be a part of a sustainability organization that was started 48 years ago and is one of the largest rubber recyclers on the planet. Humbly and proudly, I keep that chip to myself. Reason is that whenever I hear the term green, immediately I see that it being attached to things like environment and things like environment, things like electricity saving or water saving and so on and so forth. Which is correct, which is absolutely, I mean, there's no qualms about that. But a lot of things that I see happening on the is much more of lip service or preaching than practice. Pallavi very rightly, I mean, and aptly explained that. Now, what does the HR function do? I'll just stay back a little bit because we all know whenever we talk of HR, we are taught to be, or rather, we say that we are, we are the people function. We are probably those soft souls, those shoulders to cry, and so on and so forth. However, we have a huge business responsibility. And if I quote Dave Ulrich, that's I mean, okay, I'm very big fan of his. And if I have to just quote him in terms of what is HR meant for, I think we are the ones who are meant to make the organization achieve its goal through its people. It is a very tall statement. Whenever we talk of the World Earth Day or an Environment Day, our role becomes in being the organizers of the stuff. But how many times do we really think and see, okay, is it necessary at the first place? Does it make business sense to really adopt practices like green, quote unquote? And what does it mean for us? My views may be a little biased because I am from the industry. So with my current organization GRP being in presence for 48 years and meant to do this, it probably runs in the organization's DNA, a lot of the things that we talk about. However, there is always a disconnect between the lip and the cup. Yeah. So in my own mind, and Gauri knows, I was actually telling her, look, I need to do my own studies before I come and talk. But I mean, whatever little bit of reflection I could do over the last couple of days, I think it is end of the day, organizations adopt things like SDGs. Yeah, and a lot of organizations have done it across the country. We are privileged to have a prime minister who is driving this himself, and I think India is one of the forerunners in achievement of the SDGs in terms of the results. But I just stop back and I really think that, okay, does it really make business sense for us? Pallavi very rightly said that the day when being a manufacturing organization, we had to actually stop working from office. It did make sense that day. Yeah, a lot of habits had to be changed. And we had to say, look, for us, our own existence, this is what we had to do, right? We had to adopt the conversation that we are having today is because we have changed our habits over the last 1.5 years, maybe. Yeah. So I think it is, and which other function other than the people function be instrumental in driving this change across, and rather going up to the table and saying, look, it does make business sense for us, because unless we adopt certain things like these, we will not be able to really sustain in our business. And green for me is equal to sustainability. Whether we are turning the tap off or the AC switch off or the cabin room or the room lights off, it all adds up to that. But it is probably a far beyond. It is how shall we ensure that we are doing this over and over again? And I'm hinting at how do we bring these habits as our culture? So culture for me is nothing but actually the display of behaviors that we see in that at workplace, right? It can be workplace, it can be society, it can be community, and so on and so forth. What we experience what behaviors, what reactions we experience is equal to the culture. And it's like a layman, I mean, a layman like me understands culture like that. So if we just try to have this back at workplace, how do we do it? Do we, A is living, I mean, living what we preach, walking the talk, and leaders do have a, an enormous responsibility of that, but a little more. So we were having a discussion a couple of days ago, that do we really need to look at our car policy, and we will say, okay, we will only allot electric cars. Maybe a very, very advanced thought, because infrastructurally the country is still not ready. Yeah, but just thinking on these lines, and let me give you another example. While we recruit, do we really try to evaluate whether the person who is coming in with that mindset, that this is also important? The focus for task, the focus for people. Are we also looking at the focus for the planet? Because end of the day, it is in our DNA. If it is not, I know a lot of skills and a lot of our people, it is not, it may be it right. Okay, now some schools have started or incorporated green in the education system. However, generally, whenever we see some old habits die hard, so how do we incentivize on those matters? How do we really motivate, more than incentivizing, how do we motivate people to adopt certain practices? Yeah. In terms of where we are saying, yes, we are standing by. So therefore, as an organization like us, we have adopted certain SDGs which are important for us. We use OKRs, and that is what we report in our daily review, in our monthly, quarterly reviews. Yeah, we have everybody. We have actually more. I mean, it's an open thought. So it is like everybody carrying a red flag and raising it when they are seeing a certain kind of a behavior not being followed. Yeah. So are we using plastic? Now, if you're using plastic, are we disposing it properly? We have bins at our workplace, appropriate bins, appropriate grades of plastic, because we are also, as an organization, we are also getting into certain types of plastic recycling and compounding. So therefore, I think the focus for most organizations, and I think the people function, the HR teams, have a very, very big role to play here in how are we connecting the need of this to the business. It is not only a good thing to do, but I think it is a must. It is a must to do to ensure that businesses sustain, at least for the near future. I can go on and on, so please, happy to take questions if any.
That was really interesting, Mr. Sanjeeb, especially when you spoke about OKRs. I had a different question for you, but the moment you said that, I thought, no, I'm going to ask you another question, mainly because you said you had OKRs, which means you're going to be extremely focused. It's going to be a very focused approach to every business objective or goal that you have in your organization. So my question for you is, when you have such a focused approach and then you bring in green HRM, does it remove the focus from your everyday duties? So does that mean you would need more people to help you? Or does that mean people will have to remove their focus and bring in part of green HRM as the way they work? Or is it a complete change in the mindset? What is it about?
It is like this. It is not like, okay, we are doing our business as usual and we are also doing green HR, or we are also doing green initiatives. Not at all. It is like working for the auditors, and that is what is that is what we consciously don't. This is a part of our own work ethic. This is how we work. Yeah. So therefore, for us, we will print only when we need to print. Right. We actually last year, I remember very, very, effectively, because it was actually impacting our business. Now, 70% of our businesses is exports. A lot of paperwork happens because it has to go through this chamber of commerces and so on and so forth. Last year, when everything was under lock and key. How do we do it? So I send one person to my office. He gets with certain letters that we are in the export business. So this guy has to go print a whole tappa, if I may, a whole bunch of papers and take it to the CCI or FICI to get their endorsements, simply because it is an export document. We actually went up and lobbied that, is it really needed? The world is now right? We walked up, we went up to our banks to say, guys, why will you not accept applications online? Now they were still struggling with the technology. So okay, I hope now they're free. But if we are a leader, and I think these are those leadership behaviors where we really bring in and say, okay, this is our way of life. It is not something else that we do. OKRs is only what should I say? It is only like a scorecard to tell us this is what our objective was, this is what we had planned to do, and this is up to, so this is what we have done. It gives immense satisfaction if you are able to check the box. If you are not able to, then it is introspection.
Thank you very much. Which means you embrace it as a value. You just live Green HRM as a way of life. You just embrace it rather than treating it as an objective to be met.
Trying to.
Wonderful. Best wishes to you.